In this video, I'm going to show you how I went from this to this in only 45 days. And I'm going to walk through my training, nutrition, and supplementation, as well as what my plan is to maintain as much of this muscle mass as possible over the next 45 days. If you're someone who struggled to get and stay lean while maintaining muscle, this video is for you. July 13th, I believe, I posted the first video as a short. My stats were around 76.5 kilos. I was about 13% body fat, slightly over. And I had a decent amount of muscle. I wasn't starting from square one. You know, this isn't the kind of transformation where you go from being a kind of a skinny, tiny, feeble little child to a full-blown man in fucking 45 days. However, I was packing on a little bit of extra fat than I would have liked, and I definitely didn't have as much muscle mass as I would have liked. And as you can see from the before and after, I did manage to grow a significant amount of muscle mass in that first 45 days. So let's start things off in the obvious place, training. What was my training routine like for the first 45 days of this challenge? Well, put it simply, push-pull leg split. Now I went with this because, as you can see from my before pictures especially, my legs are a bit of a weak point. I've always had skinny legs, it's just my genetics, sadly. Part of this challenge, I really wanted to try to work on that and to try to... Why am I holding the fucking mic? Let's put this up here. What are we doing? Let's get professional, guys. Come on. Having that extra day of the week where I could work on my legs just exclusively, I think really helped and really get some definition in my quads especially and my hammies, and also get a little bit of calf growth too. So I'm pretty happy with how things turned out with the legs. Now I've been training approximately kind of 5 or 6 times a week, only taking kind of one recovery day, and that's just a personal preference. I find that I have a lot of energy and if I don't work out, I kind of bounce off the walls a little bit. Going to the gym every day kind of wears me down a little bit physically and helps me sleep. But of course you do need to take it at your own pace. If you're someone who, you know, isn't used to working out 6 days a week, don't overdo it because you might just injure yourself. So yeah, that's my training routine. I'm not going to kind of talk too much about the exercises that I do. If you're curious, watch some of my shorts because I kind of, at least in the first kind of 25-30 days, I was pretty prolific at uploading, and then in the end it kind of fell apart, and that's why I'm doing this video now. If you're wanting to get lean and get shredded, it's really as simple as calories in, calories out.
Calories in, calories out is essentially covered in the mass energy conservation principle, aka the first law of thermodynamics. And that first law of thermodynamics, to my virgin eyes, perusing the literature, has yet to be broken ever.
Track how many calories you're burning every day. And a good way to do this is using a fitness tracker. I personally use Whoop. Because I've been using this wearable now for a couple of years, I would say that the data on there is pretty accurate. I was aiming to be a pretty aggressive calorie deficit of between 300 and 500 calories a day. The best way to do this is to use your fitness tracker, as I said, to determine what your average calorie burn is per day. My average calorie burn was around 3,000 calories a day. I was looking to ingest around 2,500 to 2,700 calories a day. Understanding how your metabolism works and how you personally process energy and how you burn energy at what rate, once you understand this baseline, you're able to determine what your personal calorie intake should be. You see these crazy diets online where people are saying, oh, you know, eat 1,900 calories a day. That would put me at such an extreme calorie deficit and I would have absolutely no energy. So I think you really do need to personalize it and not just trust these fitness gurus and these numbers that you read online, because that works maybe for that person. But if you're someone like me who has a fast metabolism and you burn through a lot of calories every day, you're going to want to ingest more calories than you might be reading online. So that's the first kind of step really in determining your nutrition plan. Firstly, prioritize protein intake. I found that keeping my protein consumption a little bit higher than I normally would. Typically I'd keep it around kind of 180 when I was on the bulk, but keeping that a little bit above, maybe, you know, 200, 210, 220 even, it really helps you maintain the muscle mass while you're dropping the weight. Without that protein consumption, you're just going to waste away, and all those gains in the gym that you've earned will just disappear. So that's probably the biggest and most important point when it comes to diet, is you need to have a really high protein consumption. The second step really is reducing your carb intake. You know, this is a big one. My body gets quite inflamed from consuming too many carbs, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are the same. Keeping my carb intake ideally around 50 grams. Of course, I did have some fucking cheat days where I folded and ate a Burger King, and I had a pizza, and I even uploaded a video in my other channel where I ate fast food in Portugal all day. If you're interested, go to my channel, Lisbon Lad, to see that video. Keeping your carbs as low as possible and getting the most of your energy from fat sources, from healthy fat sources, olive oil, salmon, avocados, nuts, eggs, all the usual culprits really that you see on keto diets. Knowing how many carbs are in certain things is really, really important, because carbs are in things that you wouldn't even realize. You know, veggies, fruits, of course, have carbs, but even, you know, even nuts, for example, even almonds, which I eat a lot because they're very high in fat, they also contain quite a reasonable amount of carbs too. Having this knowledge and having this understanding and kind of educating yourself on macronutrients and, you know, what's in different foods is vital to be able to reduce your body fat percentage and get incredibly lean, and then more importantly, stay very, very lean, because this is a day in, day out thing and you need to be on top of it aggressively. Quick recap, we've got the push-pull leg split, we've got the high training intensity in conjunction with the high protein diet, the low carb consumption. You're going to just drop the kilos are going to fly off, and hopefully you're not going to lose too much of that muscle mass. I do take a range of supplements, I have done for years. Personally, I've whittled down the list to these essentials. We've got creatine, 5 grams a day, every day. Tons of studies out there about creatine, so I'm not going to talk about that too much, but 5 grams of creatine a day. Omega-3s, vitamin D, zinc and magnesium, methylated B vitamins. Now that's something which I've recently been learning about from a fellow called Gary Brecker. If you don't know who that is, I recommend checking him out. He did a pretty interesting podcast with Joe Rogan where he talks a lot about micronutrients and the inability of a massive proportion of the population, this is in the US, to be able to absorb micronutrients and especially different B vitamins. So the big question with regards to supplementation is, did I take any performance enhancing drugs throughout this first 45 days? And the answer is obviously yes. You know, let's be realistic, guys. You're not going to achieve that level of vascularity and that level of leanness while maintaining a huge amount of muscle mass without. Now, I'm going to say a caveat to that is I haven't taken any injectables. You know, I'm not running a proper cycle. I was just taking 25 milligrams a day of oxandrolone, otherwise known as Anavar. But essentially what Anavar does is it increases protein synthesis in your body, increasing things like IGF-1 and, you know, upregulating your androgen receptors in your skeletal muscle. So by and large, it allows you to pack on and maintain muscle mass, even with a caloric deficit. It's approved by the FDA and it's used in a number of settings to do with, you know, people who are unable to maintain a healthy weight and unable to maintain muscle mass, who might be experiencing muscle wasting, autoimmune conditions, people with AIDS, people who have had really bad, you know, surgeries. It helps them kind of prevent the muscle wasting. So when you combine this in an, you know, kind of a bodybuilding setting, if you will, if you're consuming a shitload of protein, it's going to help you grow muscle mass. I'm obviously not a scientist. I'm not pretending that I know a lot about what this stuff does. I've done my own research, and for me personally, I've used it now. This is the second time, and I found it to be very effective. But again, do your own research, guys. This is not an endorsement. I think everybody needs to take their own path, and different supplements, different steroids will work for different people in different ways. And I've found that Anavar for me was quite a low risk option to enter the PED space. I didn't want to just jump straight into inject and test. I'm curious to see where my body can go with steroids, and I'm sure that's something that I will do on this channel once I've completed this shred and we start to do a bulk and whatnot. It'll come later. So if you're wanting to see how I can turn this shredded body into a muscled freak with some actual PEDs and an actual cycle, hit subscribe, and yeah, stay in tune for those videos to come. I wanted to see, as a bit of an experiment, how much of this muscle mass that I've gained can I actually maintain for the remainder of the challenge without having any other performance enhancing drugs and just sticking to the previous routine that I mentioned. I'm under no illusion that I will definitely lose muscle mass in this process, in this next kind of month and a half. It's inevitable. However, I'm kind of curious to see how much I can maintain naturally, to give a realistic idea of the enhanced versus the natural shredded look. Doing it the other way around for me would be like, I would naturally get skinnier and lose muscle mass and then have to pack it back on. It just made sense to take the VAR for the first kind of half of this challenge, the first 40 days-ish, and then, yeah, see where I can go after that. If you're still here at the end of the video, I really appreciate it, guys. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.